7 of my Pester in Action series. Talk about using Pester to validate Active Directory this time. So we're talking OUs, groups, users, and I even do a fancy trick with delegation that might spin off into its own video. But this is very similar to a trick I'm using in one of my dev environments to validate a certain system as I set it up. So let me jump right into this here. And Active Directory system tests. So, bam, okay, jumping right into it. We start with the Active Directory module. Lots of great functions in there. And I use that very similar pattern that actually happens a lot in system type validation tests, which is I have a collection of something that I dump to a for each loop to iterate over to validate. So for this one where I've easily got 10 different OUs in a very specific configuration and structure to them, that if because upstream, or I suppose, yeah, there's a point in the process where these paths become important, so I actually test for them to exist in the exact places they exist in this domain. So ADOUs, we're going to test every one of them, just literally for each OU in the ADOU list, we make sure it has an OU at that location. Hit AD objects, easy enough, should not be null or empty. So it walks the list, make sure each and every one of those guys are in place. The next context is groups. Exact same story. I have about 8 or so groups this time that have specific names in a certain location. So if these groups are misplaced or moved or renamed or deleted, this here will kick out a field condition as it's looking through that. So 80 groups, same story for each group in 80 groups. Let's say it has a group named group. The object should not be null or empty. I mean, honestly, I could almost shove these last two into the same container and just call it AD objects, because I'm literally just testing for an AD object. If it wasn't for me wanting to have the context slightly different, so it's easier to distinguish between when testing an OU or testing a group, I could have done that. So, groups, we go users. Instead of doing a list of users and testing each one, I kind of break out a few of these users individually. And in my case, there are a lot of tests that are the same, but there are some things that are tested on some, they're not on others, and there are some slight differences. So for 2 or 3 users, I made the call to just, I'll break it out, make sure these things are there. So test, does it have the user account? Yes, it does. Is it in the correct OU? Right? I use the distinguished name of the object to test that. So it should be whatever the distinguished name is. So yeah, it's in the correct OU. Is it enabled? How do you want to enable? Yeah. So it's not enabled, you're not getting anywhere pretty quick. So I'm basically identifying a property on the object, and I say the value of this property should be true, then it is enabled. Password expire, and I get somebody changing this on you, right? No need to wait until it gets through an audit to come back and change it. Just when you're validating the system, check it. Does this property? Oh, you know, I see a very distinct pattern here. I could really, I can do some clever things with this. I might do a Pester. Oh yeah, I'm going to do a let's play video later on where I'm playing with Pester, because I've identified a pattern where I'm asking for a property, right? I'm asking for a property, testing it for a value. Asking for a property, testing it for a value. This just looks like a hash table waiting to be written. So I think I'm actually going to turn that into a test where I test an object that way. And this would be a great one for the 80 stuff. Yeah. So, sorry if I'm jumping around. I do this. Like say, do something like do say is equals hash table. What do I say? Expires. Oh, this is beautiful. Equals false. Next one. Name. Name equals sys. And then what's that guy? Next one. Surname. Yeah, sorry for the tangent here, but I think I like discover something on the fly here, and following me, I think I appreciate this. All right, should be user. Should be user. And then we're going to do a for each key in dot keys. I'm going to say it's has this key set to properties dot key. Yeah, that's work. Then we do this line here. Properties is key, and I did say user dot key. Right. Should be, and do the actual value here. Actually deletes. Expires, has its name, and has a last name. So I can actually drop all of these. If I put some filter on that. And now, if I just enumerate more keys on here, I can easily test. Yeah, I can just easily test all kinds of other attributes, right? Because I'm saying password never expires, but if I also want to test against, I don't know, is it disabled? Do I test that one? Is enabled. I do have that one up here. Oh, see? Let me move this guy up. And disabled. Yeah. generic code like this. And it's kind of cool just throwing something on the spot like that. So here's a case where now, for this user, should I save this? I'm gonna add this to the I'm just gonna add this to the GitHub. I'll check this in here in a little bit. But here's a case where I define some properties, right? I loop through them, and I know it's harder to read on the fly, but I basically get this property for this user, and then because the key, right? I mean, if you're not following me, the keys enumerates these values right here. Okay, so my list of keys is going to be password never expires, surname enabled, and what's cool about properties like this is you can actually do, it works because you can do things like this to access attributes, right? And because you can do things like this, you can substitute in a value or a variable right here. It's complicated to look at on the fly, but when you realize this is that's what this is. It's just a string. It's enumerating that property. That's how I'm getting the properties.key value. Oh yeah, I love that. Let's see that guy. And so I think for my demo, I need to move to the next group. I'm going to take this guy here and move him ahead of this guy. All right, so whoever's looking at the code next, walk through and see what I'm doing here with the enable, password set to not expire, right? And then when they get to the next user and they expand it, or the next one is this demo, I can do this thing that walks the property tree. Oh, I love that. It's so exciting. Little things, right? So now, oh, in this case, I'm also doing like a get membership. Yeah, so I'm getting the 80 principal groups, and I got a list of groups. I'm going to walk the list for that guy to make sure he's a member of each and every one of them. Administrator account, similar tests, OU, is it enabled? Oh yeah, okay. So I'm getting excited here. So moving on from users, Active Directory delegation. This is a big one here. Like, have you ever had to troubleshoot Active Directory delegation? It is through the GUI. It is cumbersome because when you add, I don't know, when you get all these apples on there, they just don't. They're just not easy to work with. So when you add them, you're not sure you get it right. And when you're troubleshooting them, you really have no idea what you're looking at. But once you can pin it down to exactly what it needs to be to build a test for it, you never have to second guess it again. You just either set it via scripts or set it and you validate it with your test here. Honestly, I would set it with scripts. This Pester test validates my AD configuration script for this environment. So I am scripting out the delegation piece, but I'm using the Pester tests to validate that nobody is mucked with it or messed with anything. So let's get back to it here. OU path, this is where my object, OU path. Oh yeah, so it's an OU, right? So I'm gonna check the apples to make sure that it's AD. Okay, get apple from path. And I want to enumerate the access list, and I want to filter the identity on the identity reference to look for my user because it should not be null or empty. So the first thing I'm doing is just making sure my AD account that I want to delegate exists anywhere on the access list at all. Has AD admin, this is an account, rights delegated. Okay. So I have, as I dive into this, I've used the get ACL. Yeah, I've used this get ACL, and I've found out which ones are added. So that's what it is. I used get ACL to see what was on there, and then I made my changes, and I ran get ACL again, and I found all the additional ACLs or security descriptors that are added and all the properties on each one of those. So it was a bit tedious at first, but once I fleshed this part out, I was able to create I have an array of hash tables. So I've got a key for each of the object properties and the corresponding values. Because I want to be able to spot check and validate these later. This is exactly what my get ACL was giving me. I have 4 of these in this case. So I've got a generic all allow on this object type. The object type is important. I have a link here more for myself, but for fire, oh, sorry, if this pulls up quickly, yeah. There are some well-known security descriptors. I mean, if you want to learn how this really works, this guy's got an excellent listing, deep dive here. I love deep dives like this. But the ones I'm looking at specifically are the type goods in the ACEs. I think we're going to see both user and group in these in the delegation I'm using. So we got 6.7 ABA and A9C. It looks like this unique here. All right, so I got users and groups. So I go back to the code. A, that's a user because of that reference. So this one is a generic all on users. This one here is a generic all on groups. And then there's a create child, delete child on users, and a create child, delete child on groups. So once I got that sorted out, I knew what I was looking at. I built this little structure here to hold all of my security, my apples. So I then walk the list. I walk my collection here. I test this one first, and then go find this one. I go find this one. I go find this one. I actually test against all the properties. Kind of even way. So for each delegation, so I'm going to follow one of these things. Okay. So for each one, I pull the applicable list on our path where the identity is for my user. So I'm only looking at the access list where my user is matched. Then I walk each key into the delegation keys, and so I'm doing my test on it. Now, I am cheating here in this example. I guess what I call is like the coin sorting method. Is that, so you notice like here, I'm resetting the list for every loop. Because in my inner loop, I'm actually filtering and filtering and filtering my access list every time I check another key. So that means is, take an example here is, I say, give me every ACL this property matches this property. Then of those, give me every ACL where this property matches this property. And of those, and that continues on the list, the object type. Of those, the flags. Of those, control type. All the way down to propagation flags. And if so as I filter on each one of these, I should have, on the very last one, I should still have something in this list that is not null or empty. So if every one of those properties is found, I know there's an ACL that exists with that. It's a unique way of filtering through the results when I don't know exactly how many ACLs I'm looking at, and I didn't have a good, clean, unique identifier to know if I've got the right ACL to test all the properties. So anyways, let this, if this is complicated, don't worry about it. You may have to let this one sink in, because I wouldn't recommend code like this every day, but I felt like this was a unique situation and kind of a unique approach to solve that. And it's just exciting when you nail some of those that really work. So, and roles and features, I already did some roles and features in another video. So there's my takeaways on this one is I need to test groups, users, and delegation. So with that, I think this video is getting long enough. So I guess join me for my next video, and I'll just start that one here right after this. So until next time.